season when the weather changes. Are all those people going to be back? I know people that live in their cars. It's not easy. And we don't make it easy at all for people on the streets. I've asked people, what do you need? And the things that they need, well, being able to shower and look good and just get cleaned up, so they can go for a job interview. But you can't go for a job interview with a black plastic bag of stuff. So you hide your black plastic bag and then you come back and it's been ripped off, because this is not a community that really seems to watch out for each other very much. Then you have a job interview, but maybe you've gotten into the shelter, but you have the job interview, it goes late and you don't get back to the shuttle in time. Then you lose your place and your stuff from the shelter. It's just, if we could go back to having a place where people can leave their things. I know years ago we had locker situation. We just need to do some things to make it a little more humane.
I appreciate that, and this is going to be speed dial portion of the program, as Michael calls it. I'm going to ask you have under 1 minute.
Speed round.
Oh, sorry.
Speed round. That's speed dial.
Okay, I'm going to introduce Michael Zadiak, who is the president of the magazine. He came here with regional magazine experience from elsewhere in the country, and one of the things he brought was insisting that instead of fluff and wine, canapes in every issue of, in addition to Sonoma magazine, we have a serious story, and Jeremy's was one of the serious stories. So that's
I have, thank you. I have about 25 copies of the magazine here. If you haven't read Jeremy's story and you want to pick it up, come over here and I'll give you one.
And he's a salesman who can't help himself. And finally, and Cindy did all kinds of things seen in
after the show
tonight happened, so thank you as well. Okay, you have under 1 minute, whatever order you choose to go in. If you could pick one thing, one concrete thing to ease homelessness in our community right now, what would that be? I guess, Jeremy, you don't want to answer. Okay, good. All right, that's Jalen.
I mean, there's a lot of issues pointed out tonight, but again, it's the community coming together to address all of these issues. If you know a landlord, or you own property, and you want to let some of the people that we're serving come and live in there, we can operate that way. We just need to treat homelessness like an emergency. The Santa Rosa City Council, as well as the Board of Supervisors, I've been so impressed with what they've done to make this an emergency. So if we can continue to treat this as such, and we can continue the safe parking in different ways after April, we can continue these warming stations, we can make sure that we reduce those 30 people dying here, and we offer dignity to every person who's in our community.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll be very short. You can't get a job, you can't get an education until you get your mind straight, mental illness, and you get rid of substance abuse. If you can't address that first, you'll never approach the other two.
Okay, thanks,
Chief?
Charles. Hank?
Well, I agree. I think ultimately it's got to be wraparound services that are going to solve and break some of the cycle of homelessness. I think the police department plays a vital role in that, getting involved really, and it was nice to hear Eddie's story, because, that's a story in law enforcement a lot of times we don't get to hear. We're usually dealing with people at the lowest. And, when you hear a story like that, you start seeing, okay, there is a difference being made. So being part of that, I think, if we can get those services wrapped around people, you might break some of those cycles of things that we're dealing with.
Well, I would point to financial resources, governmental financial resources, to increase the supply of affordable housing as the one thing. Now, I agree that does not. I acknowledge that that's like not tomorrow. You can't like just snap your fingers and have housing. But there are projects literally in the pipeline, literally waiting to go, just waiting for money. So it would be a year and a half away, but money, financial resource, and in support of that, SB 391, as I mentioned, affordable housing is a permanent source for affordable housing. The Homes and Jobs Act. If you support it, tell your representatives at the state level that you support it and that they should support it. And with that resource, we can probably make a dent.
That's great. Thank you.
I think it really starts with education, awareness, and policy change that paves the way for not an incremental increase in affordable housing. You know, bits and pieces here and there are not going to do it. We need a revolutionary change in the way that we view homelessness in this country and what we find acceptable and what we don't find acceptable.
So change the attitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shirley?
Housing first approach. If you want to give somebody back their dignity, give them shelter first and foremost. That's their number one stressor in their life. There's an old Irish saying that says that we all live in the shelter of our neighbor. And yes, it comes from our hearts, and it is a reflection of our moral fiber in terms of how we treat the most vulnerable people that live among us. So, and as a policymaker, not only do I want to do housing first, but I want to find some developers that are going to be willing to pencil out some very low-income housing. We need about 1,000 units, and we need it yesterday. And I will work with my board to make sure we fast-track those, if you can help me find them.
Okay, Matt?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to see us as a community accept the fact that homelessness is not a social issue. It is a social wrong. And we should accept the mantle of responsibility to not manage that social wrong, but to end it. Social wrongs have no place in our community. That is Sonoma County, that is Santa Rosa. Together, we can make that happen. So from here, I think it's very important that each and every one of you, each and every one of us, takes action. Remember what we heard here this evening. Tell 5 others what you heard here this evening. Make this conversation's impact go longer and further and deeper into our community, and let's be bold. Let's shift this conversation from one that's deficit-based to asset-based. These are our returning and emerging citizens here in our community, and let's put our arms around them and show them that they have a home in Sonoma County. Let's end homelessness for youth. Let's end homelessness for adults. Let's get every person who needs and wants counseling that supportive service that they deserve. And lastly, let's work to get these people back to work through jobs and education. We can do this. We've done a lot of great things in the community. Let's make this happen. Let's fix this social wrong.
That's great. About remembering, and I'm going to remember for a while what I heard tonight from the audience and from our panelists. I want to thank both of you. We have magazines and modest treats, so if you want to stay and continue the conversation, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Good job.